From the Internet Law and Policy Foundry, this is the Tech Policy Grind podcast. Every week, our fellows chat with leaders in the technology and internet law and policy space on recent developments and exciting topics such as privacy, internet governance, cybersecurity, tech legislation, and more. I'm your host, Reema Musa, and I'm a member of the fourth cohort of Foundry Fellows. The Foundry is a collaborative organization for internet law and policy professionals who are passionate about disruptive innovation. Today, I chatted with Patrick Kyhos, former fellow at the Foundry and current Deputy Chief of Cyber Policy at the FBI. Hi, Patrick. Welcome to the show. Or I should say, probably welcome back, since this is your second time on.
This is round two, and I'm just as excited and happy to be here as the original. So looking forward to our conversation.
Great. So we'll just jump right into it. And I think it would be great to hear your sort of origin story and what got you started into this field of tech policy.
Sure thing. So I think like any true origin story, you got to start where you are to properly trace through the beginning. So right now, I am a Deputy Chief of Cyber Policy at the FBI in their Cyber Division. I have a team that I co-manage and has a pretty expansive portfolio of issues that range from legislative engagements, legislative solutions, as well as emerging technology, federal cybersecurity, a whole gambit of things, and maybe some things people don't think about when you think of the FBI, because there is international components of my work as well, which is fun and exciting because we are a large organization with a large footprint, and we are across the globe to help and to assist and remediate and provide assistance to victims, whether they be individuals or entities or corporations, even governments, as recent events prove and are now public knowledge. So why did I join the FBI and how did I get here? So it starts way back in the beginning. After law school, I originally thought I was going to be a white-collar prosecutor. I had come from a stint in investment banking, but in law school, I did an externship and I realized that white-collar prosecuting wasn't all that I had thought it would be and would not be a satisfying career. I was very fortuitous in taking a really challenging and thought-provoking class in cybercrime and cybersecurity, my 2L year, and then got involved in the legislative process in legislative solutions. First at the state level, I worked for the Speaker of the House of Maryland, and then I worked for a Senate campaign and ultimately as the Chief of Staff for a Maryland member of the House of Delegates. From there, I got recruited into my current organization, where I was brought in for national security litigation and then did a variety of things, including serving in our Office of General Counsel, handling privacy, technology, and cutting-edge investigations. And then I led and established a team for our Chief Information Officer about information technology strategy and progression. And now I'm in Cyber Division, where I focus on cyber operations and investigations. So more of the OT and cutting-edge investigative tools, as well as coordination and cooperation across the globe. So why am I here and why did I get there? Because my organization is a premier around the world, known for its cyber capabilities and its proficiency. So we are uh, the first call and hopefully the best call you have to make after not so great time in your life.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the fun part about cyber, um, is being sort of on the front lines and being sort of a first responder in the digital world, I suppose. And I guess that's particularly salient in the FBI context. So that's great. So you're based in the DC area, like many other Foundry fellows. Um, and I think it's been really interesting to hear from other fellows like what their sort of DC story is and sort of what brought you there and what's kept you there. So I'd love to hear that.
So I am a longtime DC person, born and raised here, grew up here. So I'm a bit of a unicorn. I really like the culture, really like the people, and just really like the work. I'm a devoted public servant, and so there are few better places to serve the public than DC. And right now, in the technology strategy, in technology legislation, and just progression, there's no better place to be than right here in the nation's capital, creating laws and creating the solutions to some of the biggest global problems.
So I want to pull on that thread of being a lifelong public servant, and you mentioned that uh, white collar prosecution was originally your sort of interest, and then that changed once you tried it, which I think is the story of many attorneys, right? Especially within uh, cyber and tech laws, doing something more traditional, and then finding your way into this emerging field of ours. So, what got you interested in the public side of this type of work in particular?
It is the mission and the satisfaction from doing something with purpose and knowing what you do every day matters and what you do and all your work has a impact and a positive impact that others feel and is noted. Uh, I did stints in the private sector before going to law school, and I know what it feels like to work for a paycheck and just the highs and lows of what that entails. And I intentionally chose to go into public service realm because I find that more satisfying, and it continues to fuel me and motivate me even as I'm working 80, 100-hour weeks and feeling the strain of some of the unique burdens of being a member of public service in this emerging field with sometimes less staff and less support than you would need. But always knowing that there is a reason and a direct correlation between what I do and what it impacts to make things better.
Yeah. So, what do you think is unique about a career in the public service side of tech policy as opposed to the private sector in its many formats? We know that there's so many different rabbit holes or pathways that you can go down within the field of tech. Cyber in the FBI context being a very, very particular one. Um, but I guess more generally speaking, what's your sort of advice to those who might be interested um, in a career in public service in tech policy?
My advice is to know your goal and to constantly pursue that and know your rationale why you're doing it. Obviously, there are more financially lucrative fields. There are plenty of firms, plenty of private companies, plenty of think tank and advocacy groups that need great young talent. I I am motivated to the private sector or the public service sector because it really is the unique vantage point of you get to work on these issues and craft the solutions for the right reasons, and that's ultimately for the greater good. And you're not influenced or swayed by a particular organization or group that's being advocating for a certain stance on the issue. Also, within the public sector, there's a huge importance of interagency agreement and USG alignment. So there's many cooks in the kitchen, and being able to distinguish and appropriately separate which group is doing what and who is responsible for which part of a federal response or federal support is important to ensure that it is done well, effectively, and has the most return for investment, so to speak.
We'll be right back. For Cybersecurity Awareness Month, the Internet Law and Policy Foundry, as well as the Women in Cybersecurity Privacy Law and Policy affiliate, are excited to present CyberCon, the Foundry's first ever virtual cybersecurity convention. CyberCon will take place on Friday, October 28th, starting at 11 a.m. Eastern and run until 2:30 Eastern. We have a fantastic agenda planned, including a fireside chat with Josephine Wolf, who's an associate professor of cybersecurity policy at the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy at Tufts University, on her latest book, Cyber Insurance Policy: Rethinking Risk in an Age of Ransomware, Computer Fraud, Data Breaches, and Cyber Attacks. You can register for CyberCon now on the Foundry's Eventbrite page, or just check out the show notes for the link. So, shifting gears a little bit, when you were a Foundry Fellow, you were the president of your class, and that was back in the second class of fellows, so 2017 to 2019, right?
Correct.
Okay, so how was your experience? What brought you to the Foundry originally, and what was it like back then? It's changed a lot in the past few years, as we all have experienced, casual pandemic and whatnot.
It has changed a lot, and for the better, I should add, not because of my doing, but because of the successive leadership and ideas and just novel projects that have been taken on since my time at the helm. I was the second president of the second cohort, so the first group really got the Foundry off the ground, and the second class continued that upward momentum. So we expanded from a group of 45 to almost 100, which was a huge growth opportunity that we achieved. Also, we expanded out of certain metropolitan areas. So the first class was heavily situated in DC, San Francisco, and New York City. And in the second class, we took an international perspective. We got a lot of people who are situated all across the globe. In addition to that, we expanded some of our speaker series and partnership engagements in a way that had not been yet thought of in the first class, just because they were the startup trying to make everything work and get everything in line. And that has been a huge change, and the second group ended just before the pandemic really hit, and things went remotely. So it's been really interesting to see how the Foundry has moved and evolved in light of additional remote opportunities, lecturing series, and the ability for everyone to get together on video conferencing and calls like this when you're not necessarily in the same city.
Yeah, definitely a silver lining, I would say. And I guess back then in the previous iterations of the Foundry, was there more of an emphasis on in-person get-togethers and whatnot?
Oh, yes, almost exclusively. We had not really considered virtual calls other than the board getting together to make consensus decisions. It really was a physical interactive group. So there was a lot of location-based events as well as engagements, which made it hard to make sure that everyone in the Foundry was feeling heard and participating at same rates. And so as a result, we had areas of strength in DC and in San Francisco because we just had the most members there. Also, some of our events just required people to be in the same city. So things like the hackathon, which is a great success of the third class, was not possible just because we didn't have the resources, and putting something together that required people traveling and working and just collaborating like that is not possible, but is enabled by video capabilities right now, which is exciting and cool and really thrilling to see how it's been embraced and has made the Foundry better and been able to expand out to new events and just new ways of growing the network.
Yeah, it's really exciting. And I mean, the next iteration of the hackathon, I think round three will be happening in just a little bit now. So it's exciting to see how that's been enabled.
Just a few weeks away, and can't wait to see some of the ideas and great products and just camaraderie that is generated by the third annual Foundry Policy Hackathon,
Yeah, absolutely.
which is a shameless plug.
We would never do a shameless plug on this show. Never. No, we plug it every episode. but but no, appreciate the plug
Well,
for
happy to
sure.
stay on brand.
So you're on the front lines. You're sort of a cyber first responder, so to speak. What issues in cyber on the horizon do you think are the most concerning, um, most on the rise, or most underestimated?
I will answer that very broad question with an even broader statement. I think that the biggest shift in this kind of epoch of the global connected world is the blurring between nation state actors and certain criminal activities and criminal groups. And there's some theories out there that the connected world, the electronically connected world, has different iterations, and it goes in cycles, normally around the 2 to 3 year time frame. And it seems that this era is now kind of been reset by the Russian-Ukraine conflict and war, and is now where is the line between a state actor and a state-enabled, state-supported, and state-sponsored actor. And that's the thing that I think is going to evolve and stand out during this time frame. Because when you have state-aligned actors, but of cyber criminals, their activities and the ramification of some of their malicious targeting or cyber engagements, where is that line, and where do you start drawing a connection and culpability for that action?
Fascinating. Yeah. And I mean, these issues around um, attribution and the sort of larger geopolitical landscape around cyber uh, are very complex and really interesting to dive into. And I think there's an interesting connection there from the human side of people who are studying, national security, foreign policy, international conflict, and how those voices might really contribute um, to study of these issues. So, uh, thank you for your insight there with your um, broad answer to a broader question. But thank you. Awesome. So one of my favorite questions to ask fellows is what you're reading or listening to right now.
So I am reading a few things. I have several course books because I'm continuing my education with an LL.M in technology law. And so one of the books that I'm reading the most is, or rereading, should I say, is the Talon Manual, for reasons we just discussed. But also reading some of the classics and some lighthearted things that take my mind off of subject matter. So All the Light We Cannot See is a novel that I just finished up a few months ago and really enjoyed. Dor, he is an excellent writer who it's good, light reading that makes you think but doesn't make you doesn't tax your energy. So it's refreshing in that regard and highly recommend.
It's a good reminder that that reading for pleasure doesn't have to be lost in these crazy busy times that we're living in. I think I'm, in law school right now, and um, the concept of like just opening a non-law related book is like what? um, but a good reminder that you need that to kind of refresh, especially if reading is a passion. So
It is. And the Talon Manual is definitely light reading.
before we finish up, uh, I'd love to know, what are you looking forward to? Are there any exciting um, opportunities or events sort of on the horizon that you're looking towards?
Personally, I am looking forward to the end of semester and my classes so I can sleep again. Uh, Also, always looking forward to Thanksgiving, one of my favorite holidays of the year. But more closer to home and more closer on the calendar, I'm looking forward to DC FinTech Week, which is next week, sponsored by my current institution, Georgetown University, which is bringing together industry, government, and thought leaders to examine digital apps assets and really start to think through the future of what will work, what won't work in terms of policy, regulation, enforcement, and enablement.
Awesome. Well, that'll be happening probably around the same time that this episode goes up. So to anyone listening, check it out and see if you can make maybe the tail end. But that's exciting. And is it a fully in-person event?
It is in person with a hybrid option to connect virtually. So if this podcast does go out in time, check it out and make it out.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for taking the time to chat, Patrick. It was lovely to talk to you.
And it's a pleasure. And thanks, everyone, for putting up with us and hearing us out for the past couple minutes.
Hearing our not so subtle Foundry plugs. That's for sure.
Hey, I think we did a pretty good job of sneaking them in.
That's it for this episode. Hope you enjoyed listening to this conversation and fellow highlight with former president of the Foundry, Patrick Kyhos, and we'll catch you next time. Huge thank you to Lama Muhammad, our social coordinator, and Allison McReynolds, our accessibility coordinator, for all their help in making this episode happen.